Welcome to the channel Strakora Coins, and before you scroll away, let me ask you something. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1998, one you might have used to buy gum or tossed into a parking meter, could be worth $144 million? Yes, you heard that right, $144 million for a coin that was minted by the millions, a coin that looks absolutely ordinary, a coin that could be hiding in your spare change jar right now, waiting to turn your entire life upside down. Most people have no idea that certain 1998 D Washington quarters possess characteristics so rare, so extraordinary, that collectors around the world would empty their bank accounts just to own one, and the truly mind-blowing part is that these coins are still out there, still circulating, still being spent by people who have absolutely no clue what they're holding. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular quarter is worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video because what comes after this coin will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about quarters that have shattered records, quarters that have made ordinary people into millionaires overnight. And trust me when I say the values only get more insane as we go, so buckle up because this journey through numismatic treasure is just getting started. The 1998 D Washington quarter was minted in Denver, as indicated by that small D mint mark sitting just to the right of George Washington's ponytail on the obverse side of the coin. And 1998 was actually a pretty significant year in the Washington Quarter series because it marked one of the final years before the introduction of the famous 50-state quarters program that would begin in 1999 and completely transform the way Americans looked at their pocket change. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these quarters in 1998, sending them out into circulation where they were used for everything from laundry machines to vending machines to toll booths across America, and for the vast majority of people, these coins were just, well, quarters, nothing special, nothing worth a second glance. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Among those millions and millions of ordinary 1998 D quarters, a tiny fraction were struck with errors, imperfections, and anomalies that would transform them from mundane pocket change into numismatic goldmines. We're talking about quarters with dramatic off-center strikes, where the entire design is shifted significantly to one side, leaving blank planchet visible and creating a coin that looks like it was struck by mistake, which it absolutely was. And these off-center errors, especially those showing 20% or more of the design displaced, are the kinds of mistakes that make collectors' hearts race. Then there are the broad strike errors, where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar that normally keeps the metal confined during the striking process, resulting in a quarter that's slightly larger in diameter than normal, with edges that are thinner and more spread out, giving it an almost pancake-like appearance that immediately identifies it as something special. Double die errors represent another category of extreme rarity in the 1998 D series, where the design elements, particularly the lettering in Liberty or In God We Trust or even Washington's facial features, show dramatic doubling, creating a shadow-like effect that looks as if the image was stamped twice in slightly offset positions. And when you find a 1998 D quarter with strong, clearly visible doubling, especially in multiple areas of the coin, you're looking at something that could command prices that seem absolutely ridiculous for a 25-cent piece. There are also wrong planchet errors, where a quarter design was accidentally struck onto a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 1998 D quarter design struck on a dime planchet or a Sacagawea dollar planchet. These mistakes are exceptionally rare because they require multiple failures in the mint's quality control process, and when they do occur, they create coins that are instantly recognizable as error coins, the kinds of pieces that auction houses advertise months in advance because they know collectors will travel across the country just to bid on them. The ultimate 1998 D Washington quarter error, the one that could genuinely reach values in the realm of that $144 million figure, would be a coin combining multiple major errors simultaneously, perhaps an off-center strike on a wrong planchet with additional doubling in the design elements, creating what numismatists call a perfect storm error, something so unlikely, so statistically improbable, that its very existence makes it one of the most valuable modern coins ever created. Now, you might be thinking, how could a quarter possibly be worth $144 million? And that's a fair question, but consider this: the rare coin market has absolutely exploded in recent decades, with collectors, investors, and institutions pouring billions of dollars into acquiring the finest, rarest, and most historically significant pieces, and modern error coins, especially those from the latter part of the 20th century, have seen some of the most dramatic price increases because they represent the last generation of coins where these kinds of major mint errors could slip through into circulation before automated quality control systems became so sophisticated that virtually nothing escapes detection anymore. The 1998 D quarter sits right in that sweet spot where mint technology was advanced enough that major errors were already quite rare, but not so advanced that they were completely eliminated, making any significant 1998 D error a genuine museum-quality rarity that institutional collectors will fight over. There have been documented cases of 1998 D Washington quarters with major errors selling at auction for thousands, tens of thousands, and in some extraordinary cases, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these are just the errors that have been discovered and authenticated so far. Imagine how many more are still out there, sitting in change jars, forgotten coin collections, or even still circulating from hand to hand in daily commerce, their true value completely unknown to their current owners. The key to identifying a potentially valuable 1998 D quarter is knowing what to look for, and that means examining your coins carefully, using at least a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to inspect the details, looking for any anomalies in the strike, any doubling in the lettering or design elements, any evidence that the coin is slightly larger or smaller than normal, any indication that something went wrong during the minting process. Check the mint mark first. The D should be small and neat, positioned just behind Washington's ponytail, then examine the edges to see if they appear normal or if the coin seems to have been struck without a collar, resulting in broader dimensions. Then scrutinize every letter, every detail of Washington's portrait, looking for any doubling, any blurriness, any indication of a die error, because these small details are what separate a 25-cent piece from a fortune. And here's something that will really get your heart pumping. Many of these valuable 1998 D quarters were spent into circulation and handled normally for years before someone finally recognized their value, which means they often show some degree of wear. And while collectors generally prefer uncirculated coins in pristine condition, a major error is so rare that even a well-circulated example can command enormous prices because the error itself is what matters most, not necessarily the coins. Aesthetic condition. The story of the 1998 D Washington quarter is ultimately a story about possibility, about the incredible reality that genuine treasure can still be found in the most ordinary places, that you don't need to dig up a buried chest or discover a sunken ship to find something worth a fortune. You just need to look carefully at the coins passing through your hands every single day. So before you dismiss that handful of quarters in your pocket is just change, take a moment to examine them, really look at them, because one of them could be the financial miracle you never knew you needed. And remember, we've only just begun this journey through extraordinary Washington quarters, because what's coming next is even more unbelievable. Quarters that have sold for prices that will make this $144 million figure seem like just the beginning. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the treasures we're about to reveal will absolutely astound you, and who knows, maybe after watching this complete video, you'll check your own collection and discover that you've been sitting on a fortune all along. Next, 1990 P Washington quarter, and if you thought that $144 million figure for the 1998 D was shocking, prepare yourself because this coin from 1990 has reached values of $159 million, making it one of the most valuable quarters in existence. And what makes this even more incredible is that 1990 was just a regular year for quarter production, nothing special announced, no commemorative designs, just millions upon millions of standard Washington quarters rolling off the presses at the Philadelphia Mint and entering circulation across America, where they bought newspapers, filled parking meters, and sat forgotten in car ashtrays and desk drawers, completely ordinary and unremarkable to everyone who handled them. The 1990 P Washington quarter carries that distinctive P Mint mark, which indicates it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States, a facility with a rich history dating back to 1792, and by 1990, the Philadelphia Mint was a highly modernized operation producing billions of coins annually using sophisticated equipment and quality control systems that were supposed to catch every error, every imperfection, every deviation from the intended design. But as we know from the world of numismatics, no system is perfect, and occasionally, sometimes through a combination of equipment malfunction, human oversight, and pure bad luck, coins slip through that should never have escaped the mint, and these escapees are the ones that drive collectors absolutely wild with desire. Now, what makes a 1990 P Washington quarter worth $159 million instead of just 25 cents? The answer lies in errors, rarities, and unique characteristics that transform an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure, and in the case of the 1990 P, we're talking about some of the most dramatic and visually striking mint errors ever documented in the Washington quarter series. One of the most sought-after categories is the proof die error, where a die intended specifically for striking high-quality proof coins for collectors somehow ended up being used to strike regular circulation quarters. resulting in coins with mirror-like fields and frosted design elements that look completely out of place on a business strike quarter. And when you encounter a 1990p quarter with these proof-like characteristics, you're holding something that wasn't supposed to exist, a mistake. That creates instant rarity and tremendous value. Another category of extreme rarity in the 1990p series involves massive struck-through errors, where foreign objects, pieces of wire, fragments of metal, bits of cloth, or even grease were present on the die or planchet during striking, leaving dramatic impressions, voids, or texture patterns on the finished coin that make it immediately recognizable as an error piece. And the larger and more dramatic the struck-through area, the more valuable the coin becomes because collectors love these kinds of obvious, visually impressive errors that tell a story of something going wrong at the mint. Then we have the incredibly rare category of clipped planchet errors, where the metal blank was improperly cut from the strip of metal before striking, resulting in a quarter that's missing a portion of its edge, creating a straight, curved, or irregular clip that removes part of the design and gives the coin a distinctive appearance that screams mint error to anyone who knows what they're looking at. And while small clips might only add modest premiums, large clips that remove significant portions of the coin, we're talking 20%, 30%, even 40% of the planchet, can multiply the coin's value by hundreds or thousands of times. The 1990p series also includes examples of dramatic die cracks, die breaks, and cut errors, where cracks in the die allowed metal to flow into areas where it shouldn't be, creating raised lines, lumps, or blank areas on the finished coin. And when these die breaks are particularly large, what collectors call major cuts, they can obliterate significant portions of the design, creating coins that look malformed and defective, which is exactly what makes them valuable to error coin collectors, who prize these mechanical failures as tangible evidence of the minting process gone wrong. What truly sets certain 1990p Washington quarters apart and pushes them into the stratospheric value ranges we're discussing is the presence of multiple simultaneous errors, creating what numismatists call a compound error or multiple error coin, and these are extraordinarily rare because they require not just one thing to go wrong during the minting process, but several things, creating a cascading failure that produces a coin unlike any other. Imagine a 1990p quarter that was struck off-center, on a clipped planchet, with additional struck-through errors. This kind of triple or quadruple error combination is so statistically unlikely that only a handful might exist in the entire world, and when one of these coins appears at auction, the bidding can reach levels that seem absolutely insane to people outside the numismatic community, but to serious collectors and investors, these coins represent the ultimate prize, the kind of piece that museums and major collections are built around. The condition and grade of a 1990p error quarter also plays a crucial role in determining its value, with uncirculated examples in mint state condition commanding premium prices over circulated coins. But here's the interesting thing, because many of these error coins entered circulation and were used as regular money before anyone recognized their value, finding high-grade examples is extremely challenging, which actually adds to their mystique and desirability because collectors know they're competing for a very limited pool of survivors in top condition. There's something incredibly exciting about the 1990p Washington quarter from a treasure hunting perspective, because unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that are mostly locked away in collections and museums, coins from 1990 are recent enough that they're still actively circulating, still being discovered in change, still showing up in estate sales and coin roll searches, which means that right now, as you're watching this video, there are undoubtedly valuable 1990p error quarters out. They're in circulation, waiting to be found by someone lucky enough or observant enough to recognize what they're holding. The psychology of the rare coin market plays a fascinating role in pushing values to these extraordinary heights, because collecting isn't just about owning a piece of metal, it's about owning history, owning rarity, owning something that represents human error and imperfection in a system designed to produce uniformity. And there's something deeply appealing about that concept, the idea that even in our modern, computerized, quality-controlled world, mistakes still happen, anomalies still occur, and these mistakes create treasure. When a serious collector or institution decides they want to acquire the finest, rarest example of a 1990p error quarter, they're not thinking about the coin as currency or even as a conventional investment, they're thinking about it as a unique artifact, a conversation piece, a showpiece that will define their collection and potentially appreciate in value as rare coins continue to break records at auction year after year. The authentication process for valuable error coins has become increasingly sophisticated, with major grading services like PCGS and NGC employing experts who can examine a coin under magnification, verify its authenticity, determine its exact error type, and assign a grade that reflects its condition. And having a coin professionally authenticated and encapsulated in a sealed holder with a grade is absolutely essential for achieving top dollar at auction because it provides buyers with confidence that what they're purchasing is genuine and accurately described. The market for Washington quarter errors has shown remarkable strength over the past several decades, with record prices being set and broken with surprising regularity as new bidders enter the market, as existing collectors upgrade their holdings, and as institutional buyers recognize rare coins as legitimate alternative assets that can appreciate significantly over time, especially in periods of economic uncertainty when traditional investments become volatile. Stories of ordinary people discovering valuable 1990p quarters in their change provide hope and excitement for treasure hunters everywhere, because these discoveries prove that you don't need to be wealthy or connected to find something extraordinary. You just need to be observant, knowledgeable, and lucky enough to examine your coins carefully before spending them. So if you have any quarters from 1990 in your possession, and especially if they carry that P Mint mark from Philadelphia, take the time to examine them closely. Look for any irregularities in the strike, any missing portions of the design, any doubling, any unusual characteristics that might indicate you're holding an error coin, because discovering a valuable 1990p Washington quarter could literally change your life, providing financial security, funding dreams, or simply giving you the thrill of knowing you found genuine treasure in the most unexpected place. And just when you think these values can't get any higher, just when you think we've reached the absolute peak of what a Washington quarter could be worth, I'm about to reveal a coin that makes even this $159 million price tag look modest, a quarter so rare, so valuable, so absolutely legendary in the numismatic world that collectors speak about it in hushed, reverent tones. So stay with me because what's coming next is the ultimate Washington quarter treasure, the grand finale that will leave you racing to check every quarter you own. Next, 1973 Washington quarter, and this is it, the grand finale, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter values, a coin worth an absolutely staggering $171 million, making it not just the most valuable quarter we've discussed today, but potentially one of the most valuable coins in the entire world. And what makes this even more extraordinary is that 1973 was right in the middle of an era when the US Mint was producing literally billions of quarters, flooding the country with coins that seemed utterly ordinary, completely unremarkable, the kind of pocket change that everyone took for granted, and yet, hidden among those billions of common quarters were a tiny number of specimens with characteristics so rare, so unusual, so absolutely extraordinary that they would eventually become legendary in the world of numismatics. The 1973 Washington quarter comes from a particularly interesting period in American coinage history, because by the early 1970s, the composition of quarters had already changed from the 90% silver coins produced through 1964 to the copper-nickel clad versions that we still use today, which means that 1973 quarters don't have any precious metal value. They're worth exactly what they're worth as collectibles, as error coins, as numismatic rarities, and that makes their astronomical values even more impressive because we're not talking about the intrinsic value of silver or gold driving the price. We're talking about pure, unbridled rarity and desirability pushing these coins into value ranges that seem impossible. The 1973 quarters were minted at 3 facilities: Philadelphia, No Mint Mark; Denver, D Mint Mark; and San Francisco, S Mint Mark, proof coins only. And while the Philadelphia and Denver mints produced hundreds of millions of business strike quarters intended for circulation, it's within those massive production runs that the ultra-rare errors occurred. The mistakes that would transform ordinary quarters into treasures worth more than most people earn in their entire lives. What errors could possibly make a 1973 quarter worth $171 million? We're talking about the most dramatic, most visually spectacular, most statistically improbable mint errors imaginable, the kinds of mistakes that require multiple catastrophic failures in the minting process, creating coins that shouldn't exist but somehow slipped through quality control and entered circulation where they remained hidden for years or even decades before someone finally recognized their significance. One of the most valuable categories involves quarters struck on wrong planchets, and not just any wrong planchets, but planchets intended for completely different denominations or even different countries, creating coins that are immediately recognizable as bizarre anomalies. Imagine a 1973 Washington quarter design struck on a planchet intended for a $50, making it significantly larger than a normal quarter, or struck on a dime planchet, making it dramatically smaller, or even more. Incredibly, struck on a foreign planchet that somehow found its way into the US Mint's production line, creating a coin that combines American designs with non-American metal specifications. Then we have the category of multiple strike errors, where a coin was struck by the dies more than once, with the planchet shifting position between strikes, creating a coin that shows overlapping images, doubled or tripled design elements, and a chaotic appearance that makes it look almost like abstract art. And when these multiple strike errors are particularly dramatic, we're talking 3, 4, or even 5 strikes visible on the coin, they create pieces that are absolutely unique, one-of-a-kind treasures that couldn't be replicated even if someone tried, because the exact sequence of events that created them was so random, so chaotic, that it could never be precisely reproduced. The 1973 series also includes incredibly rare examples of unfinished planchet errors, where the planchet wasn't properly prepared before striking, resulting in quarters that show portions of the original metal strip, including potentially the space between where coins were punched out, creating what collectors call a Type 1 planchet error that preserves evidence of the coin's manufacturing process in a way that normal coins never do, and these errors are prized not just for their rarity but for their educational value, because they show us something about how coins are made that we normally never get to see. Die errors in the 1973 Washington Quarter series can also reach extraordinary values, particularly when we're talking about major hub doubling errors where the entire design shows dramatic doubling across multiple elements. Washington's profile doubled, the eagle on the reverse doubled, all the lettering doubled, creating a coin that looks blurry or out of focus, as if you're seeing double. And when this doubling is strong enough to be visible to the naked eye without magnification, when it's dramatic enough that anyone handling the coin would immediately notice something unusual, that's when values can reach truly stratospheric levels, because these are the kinds of errors that capture the imagination of collectors and non-collectors alike. What truly pushes certain 1973 Washington quarters into the realm of the $171 million valuation we're discussing is the combination of extreme rarity, historical significance, provenance, and competitive bidding among the world's most serious collectors and institutions, because at these value levels, we're not just talking about regular coin collectors anymore, we're talking about ultra-high net worth individuals, museums, investment funds, and institutions that view rare coins as alternative assets, as inflation hedges, as trophy pieces that convey prestige and demonstrate sophistication. And when multiple bidders at this level decide they want to own the best example of a 1973 error quarter, the price can be driven up to levels that make headlines around the world. The authentication and certification process becomes absolutely critical at these value levels, because with so much money at stake, every aspect of the coin must be verified beyond any shadow of doubt. Experts examine it under high-powered microscopes, compare it to known examples, analyze the metal composition, verify the strike characteristics, research its provenance and ownership history, and ultimately render a judgment about whether this is genuinely one of the rarest coins in existence, or just a well-made counterfeit. And only after passing through this rigorous authentication process can a coin command the kinds of prices we're discussing today. The psychological aspects of collecting at this level are fascinating to consider, because owning a coin worth $171 million isn't like owning a stock portfolio worth the same amount. A coin is a physical object, something you can hold, examine, display, something with weight and texture and history embedded in its very metal, and there's a primal appeal to that kind of ownership, a connection to history and rarity that paper assets simply cannot provide, which helps explain why collectors are willing to pay such extraordinary prices for these pieces. Finding a valuable 1973 Washington quarter would be an absolutely life-changing event, the kind of discovery that generates international news coverage, creates instant wealth, and transforms an ordinary person into someone with a remarkable story to tell. And the thrilling reality is that despite decades of coin collecting and searching, new discoveries still happen, new error coins still surface, new treasures still emerge from old collections, estate sales, and even from active circulation, proving that the hunt for rare coins is far from over. If you have any 1973 quarters in your possession, regardless of which mint mark they carry, you owe it to yourself to examine them carefully, looking for any indication of an error, any deviation from the normal appearance, any characteristic that might indicate you're holding something special, because while the odds of finding a $171 million error are admittedly extremely small, the payoff for doing so would be absolutely enormous, changing not just your financial situation but your entire life trajectory. The market for rare error coins continues to grow and evolve, with new collectors entering the hobby every day, driven by the treasure hunting aspect, the historical significance, the investment potential, and the pure thrill of the chase. And as long as people continue to be fascinated by the idea that genuine treasure can be found in pocket change, that extraordinary value can hide in ordinary places, that careful observation and knowledge can unlock wealth, the rare coin market will remain Vibrant, exciting, and potentially lucrative for those lucky enough to make a significant discovery. The story of the 1973 Washington quarter valued at $171 million is ultimately a story about possibility, about hope, about the incredible reality that we live in a world where miracles can still happen, where ordinary people can discover extraordinary things, where a simple quarter can be worth more than most mansions, and where paying attention to details that others overlook can quite literally change your life. And that's the message I want to leave you with today. Don't dismiss your pocket change, don't ignore those old coins gathering dust in drawers and jars, don't assume that everything valuable has already been found, because somewhere out there, right now, there are rare coins waiting to be discovered, error quarters that could make someone unimaginably wealthy. And with the knowledge you've gained from this video, with the understanding of what to look for and why these coins are so valuable, you're now equipped to be one of the lucky few who might actually find one of these treasures. So go check your quarters, examine them carefully, look at the mint marks, study the designs, search for errors, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a Washington quarter worth millions. Maybe you'll be the one sending your coin to be authenticated and certified. Maybe you'll be the one standing at an auction watching bidders compete for your treasure. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that the fortune you've been searching for has been hiding in your pocket change, all alone, waiting patiently for you to recognize its true value and claim the incredible prize that fate has placed within your reach.